Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Perfect Prey. I'm so glad you're here. You guys know that I'm trying to educate everyone as much as I can on the experiences of adult and child victims of coercive control. And Maggie has joined me today, so she's here on my lap. But I'm also joined by Sybil Cummings, who is here to talk about the work that she does, particularly with children. And do not have enough child therapists in this world at all. Never mind enough who understand how the manipulative strategies of coercive controllers and what's going on in these family systems. So I'm so grateful for what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, and that's, like, the understatement of the year. We do not have enough child therapists in general, and then very few that really understand the gravity of what that course of control looks like, how it shows up in, like, the play therapy room, because 'cause I'm a trained play therapist, how they can support not just the child, but the parents, and then also there's a sense of, like, how to protect yourself as the clinician, because unfortunately, these are the tougher cases where if you're a parent looking for a therapist and you mention air quotes high conflict divorce, you're going to get a lot of no's. A lot of people saying, nope, we don't do those cases. We won't work with those cases. And so that's just really demoralizing as a parent trying to find services for kids who probably need the services the most.
So true. So two things you said that I like. I feel, oh my gosh. So then add in that these abusers are the first people to say they're going to get our licenses revoked or something. They
Yes.
like to threaten us a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a dangerous situation because the victim survivor is worried about their safety, but then the children aren't even able to really disclose sometimes how they truly feel because they're afraid of the abuser. There's just so many things, which is why I appreciate that we do have some good therapists out there. We need many more, but you probably know that's why I created the protective parenting program
Mhm.
because I said, listen, you may not get your child to therapy, or when your child goes, the therapist may not truly get what's going on, or the child might go with a narrative that is totally false and hoodwink everyone because they
Yeah.
have no choice. So, who's the best therapist is the protective parent in the home, which is really what I hope to, but that doesn't mean that we don't need other therapists too. Ideally, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, you
Yeah.
can do the work in the home, but you can do the work with someone else too. And that's what you do.
Right? And that's that unconditional relationship that a protective parent can provide their child is gonna trump me having a great relationship with your child any day. Having both is helpful. That's right, that's like the ideal, but yes, if because a lot of times, right, consent will be pulled when they realize that I'm not going to be a part of their narrative. And so if consent's pulled, it's just making sure that the parent that is protective is trying to keep their kids, and when I say safe, it doesn't necessarily mean physically safe, just emotionally safe as well, but that they can show up in ways to support their kid. That is what's really helpful too. So,
It is. And I think, I know you can speak to this. Like, the more that we see our children healing, even though it might be the hardest work that there is, which I say protective parents are doing the hardest work there is on the planet. But the more that we see our kids healing, the more that if we have suffered this, the more that we can heal because there is healing and synergy. When you trick your brain into believing that things are getting better, sometimes things can get better, right? I mean, it's a very challenging circumstance. So I can't even imagine like you have a little one coming into your office and you're trying to help them. Can you explain a little bit about
yeah.
what
Yeah,
that's
so
like?
I'm a play therapist by training. I work with kids 3.5 and up and have been deemed by people in the community before I even knew what coercive control and domestic violence and all of the before I even knew what those were, I was deemed like good at DV. I don't know what that actually means. Like I really have no idea, but that's what I was contracted with several of the counties in my area for child protection, and that's what they decided that I was really good at it. So cool. Don't know what that was, but the more I learned, right, the more I learned about it and saw the saw the dynamic through the child, it was really helpful in me being able to then see the entire family system and fortunately and unfortunately, the larger system with the school system, the family court system, juvenile court sometimes, and all of the larger systems that are there. But as a play therapist, parents bring their kids in and we use tools to help kids navigate their world and navigate their healing. And so the belief is that kids actually have everything they need to heal. They already have it inside them. They need a safe place to really start processing what they've experienced. So some of the time kids will like actually play out what happened. So an ambulance came to the house and mom went into the ambulance, or like two homes, and one home has army men protecting the home and the other home was buried in the sand or whatever it might be. So sometimes they actually play out their experience, and then other times they're playing out themes. And so there might be that theme very often in these cases where there is coercive control and different abuses at home. There's a theme of power and control in the room. And so the child needs to take on that power and control feel, which can be so scary and triggering for a parent who has experienced their partner having power and control over them. And so sometimes the play that parents will bring their kids in and their play is scary to them. They don't usually use that language, but in the play therapy room, they get to have power and control in the room. That will help me see what they're experiencing, but also give them that sense of agency and autonomy that they don't get to have, especially if they're going back and forth from homes. It's really confusing. And they have one home where they're in the fawning response like 24/7.
Mm.
So giving them a place where they do not have to be in that fawning response is so healing for them. But really, we believe if you're a non-directive play therapist, that kids actually have what they need. They just need some of the language. They need that safety to do the work and process it.
Yeah, no, so important. I'm thinking about, you reminded me some of my earlier work. Actually, my first hours as getting my license was in play therapy with little ones in a major clinic. And just to have them come in and be playing out some of the experiences. And I at the time I was working for child welfare, right? So some of these
Mhm.
kids, I would see them walk in the door. They were foster kids now because they had been removed from a home because of abuse, and then they're going in, and I wouldn't see them as a therapist because that wouldn't be appropriate, but I would see them in the waiting area, and you could see this dysregulation. And I think what happens oftentimes is that these kids come home, they're so dysregulated, and our first reaction, especially as trauma victims, particularly when they're acting a lot, like you said, that scary part when they're like trying to exert power and control in the home, is to be triggered by it and then to correct.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, like, "Why are you doing that?" or "You shouldn't be doing that," or "Why are you talking to me that way?" All of these corrections, when really the most important thing is that they actually have an opportunity to do that, but also that we connect with them,
Yes.
and that connection will help them to understand why they're behaving the way they're behaving, but we can't expect them to figure that out when we're constantly correcting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that in a play therapy space or any therapy space, so if you're an adult with a therapist, half of the work is that relationship. Probably more than half the work is a relationship, but that ability to co-regulate with that person in session. And so, yes, sometimes our kids are real wild, they're all over the place, and being able to co-regulate with us because I am not triggered by them coming in. I don't have the same emotional connection that a parent does.
Right.
And so that is some of the work too, is how to help parents co-regulate with their child. And so that's something too. If you're a parent and you are the protective or preferred parent and you share decision making, that's like a whole episode about that, getting therapy for your child when you share decision
Maybe we
making.
need to do another one.
Right? I'm like, that's a whole nother thing. But I actually, and this scares people, but I have communication with both parents. And that is really to protect the child and to protect the victim parent. And so get to explain that to parents I work with, but I think that's something that's missed by a lot of therapists in general, child therapists, is they're not as transparent or explaining of why it is important to work with both parents if the child's going back and forth. Some of it, like I do intake sessions with both because I'm going to get so much data from both situations. Like whose focus is the child, whose focus is the other parent, whose focus is being my best friend at
Mhm.
first, versus like they're concerned about their child. So I get a
Mhm.
lot of information that way. And then being able to offer recommendations to both parents. However, I am pretty careful with this and hold a lot of the child's information close to my chest when it is a case I know is in family court or it is a case where I have that like the spidey senses of I think coercion's present, I think maybe coaching is present. I do keep more of the child's information close to my chest because I don't want them to experience harm because of what I've shared. So that also scares parents if I'm not sharing what's going on in the session with them, if I'm not sharing all that information. And when I'm talking with parents, it is to protect you and to protect your child. That's why I'm doing that. And I know it can feel really scary to not know everything that's going on in the room.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking about though, it's interesting to me. So, an abuser knows you from your work. You have a podcast, right? Rising Beyond. You do this work, yet they come in and they're willing to collaborate with you, it sounds like sometimes. You're getting that
Sorta,
experience. That's pretty
sorta.
what
Yes,
I
so
wanna know what
I
you're
will
yeah.
say I did a really good job for a long time of keeping everything separate. So I have my therapy practice is Arvada Therapy Solutions. It is separate. And then I have Rising Beyond as a separate company, and I don't cross, like, market or any of that, so I don't do any of that. And now that I'm fancy, if you Google search me, they both come up.
I was gonna say.
Right? And so
Yeah.
for a long time, there was no awareness that I was both people, and on my therapy website, I have nothing about coercive control, about domestic violence, about narcissistic abuse, I have nothing because these are the kids we should work with at my practice because this is where we specialize. And yet, we wouldn't be able to get consent a lot of the times if they really knew. And so that is such a that's a tricky piece. And so now I'm starting to see some issues with that. There are some judges, which is good and bad, in the area that they know my work. And so if I'm one of the 3 names and the judge believes that there is something amiss, then I am typically the name chosen if I have space. But there it is an interesting thing. And then I do know that there've been some of my parents have felt hoodwinked because they just looked at my website, like I've got therapy solutions. They're like, "Oh, she looks great. She's well known in the community as a child therapist. Thumbs up." And then later they learn who I am, then they have some concerns about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do this clinician attorney coach training, and it's 14 CEs for therapists, and but people could take it self-study if they want to, but and it's through the ASWB, but if you live in a different state or if you're a different practitioner, you can actually get reciprocity, which is great. But the interesting part about it is that I tell people, "Don't advertise as someone doing this work. Advertise you can put, like, narcissistic abuse if you'd like or coercive control somewhere in there, but don't make it the top thing. Don't do what I did because then
Yeah.
you're never going to get people to be able to come to you. And even if you just like it sounds like for you, like there's been a period of time where you've been able to do this work without anybody knowing, and now you're at the point where it's and that's okay. Your practice might shift a little bit, but it's okay. You've helped so many people already. Yeah.
And it allows me to train, it allows me to teach, like, I have interns at my practice, so all of them that leave will
Oh,
understand
amazing.
this. So it's
Amazing.
like, I always talk with not just therapists, but other, like, even survivors who are in that space of wanting to help others
Yeah.
and wanting to advocate in that element of it, is that I'm a couple drops in the bucket. I can't fill the whole bucket of saving Colorado or saving all the children here or any of that, and so I'm gonna add my drops into the bucket, and then you're Dr. Cocchiola, you're gonna add your drops in the bucket, and then with more of us, the buckets will get filled, and more change will happen, but that has been an interesting experience, and it's funny because some parents, because in the community, I am very well known in Colorado for what I do, so then I'm the only choice,
I was
even
gonna
for the
say, I
narcissistic
imagine.
parent.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Sybil's the only choice because she's the best in this area," and they have this, like, big thing, and I got fancy letters after my name, I've done like, all the things, And so fascinating that the other side will also choose me sometimes,
Oh,
and it is like that fascinates me, and I'm, "Okay, great, I will work with your kiddos. Sounds good."
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Can you
fascinating.
it is, it does sound fascinating. Can you tell us about a case scenario, a case or something? Give us an example of something like how maybe the challenges of trying to support the protective parent, right? And support the child and how you navigate that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so kind of compilation of clients, but as they're coming right, as the child's coming in and I am working with both parents, it might be like aggressive behavior or struggling at school. I actually work really well with boys. I work probably better with boys than I work great with girls too, and I'm pretty, like, rambunctious myself, so we're gonna be rough and tumble sometimes in the play therapy room, but I'll have right, one parent come in and they're talking like school behaviors and this and these kinds of things and help my child do well, and they'll very briefly mention, "And the divorce was ugly," or something of that nature, right?
Mhm.
Like, just these little inklings because they have probably said, "I'm in a high conflict divorce," and people have been like, "No, thank you." Other parent will come in and sometimes share similar concerns, but a lot of times it is completely off. The concerns are not even remotely close, or they have no concerns. I don't know what's going on at mom's house.
Mhm.
This kid is great at my house. No behaviors to see here, but because things are bad at mom's house, I think counseling's a good idea. And so then it's me getting to know the child. And this varies by kid, so case by case, but I actually like when both parents are willing to bring the child in because when a child will come in with a protective parent and will present very differently to me in the room when they come in with a parent they're fearful of. They behave pretty well in the lobby area if it's a parent that they're fearful of. They will almost sometimes weirdly go and give, like, love to their parent when they come out of session. Their work in session looks really different, and
Per
that
performative.
interaction is so helpful for me to see,
Yeah, I'm thinking
to see
performative,
that.
right?
Yes.
It's so I wanna be like for our listeners, like, every child fears the abusive parent. They just may not overtly show it.
Yes.
And so then that kid who's going over to give this parent a hug you're watching it and you can pick up on the
Mhm.
dynamic. Sadly, court professionals don't pick up on it, especially if they're only
Yeah.
visiting with the child for an hour or something. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he's showing affection to his," we'll say, "father right now." Everything's fine at the father's
Yeah.
house when the reality is the child has learned that they cannot authentically be themselves and they need to perform in that
Yeah.
situation. And what you're saying is you can pick up on that.
Yeah. Yes, that I
For
watch their
sure.
like, when they're being naughty in my play there or in my lobby, but it's nothing destructive but they're not sitting still and they're not being quiet, and then the other parent comes in and they're sitting hands crossed on their lap, and I know them as a rambunctious 8, 9, 10-year-old boy where we are, like, playing games and throwing balls at each other and doing stuff in the play therapy room that is really active, and they are sitting calmly and quietly in the lobby. I'm like, "That's not the kid I know."
That's right. That's right.
And so getting to know the child allows me to really get to see that, and offering it's okay. I've had some kids in my room who don't say anything, 0 words, like, they don't wanna talk at all,
Right.
and then I have kids where we talk about how hard it is to be different people at each house,
Mhm. Yeah. And when you
and
say different, it's
yeah,
like how hard it is to not be able to be yourself. And sometimes children can't even be themselves with the protective parent because they're made to believe that protective parent isn't
yeah,
safe. And so
yes,
this living in a place of I can't be myself anywhere. I can't let go anywhere. And I'm just so grateful they have you. You're making me think about I took a guardian ad litem training here in the state of Connecticut just for intel. Wanted to get the intel. You do, and I know you have this experience too. We know these GALs, custody evaluators, forensic evaluate, whatever you want to call them. We know that they go out and they visit with the child once or twice for a little short period of time. And you just said something I think that is so important. You said I give myself a chance to get to know the child so that when they leave your office, you can tell if they're really being themselves in the waiting room or not. And I don't think court professionals are really getting to know children in 2 30-minute sessions, and one, by the way, at the abuser's house when they have to behave a certain
Yep.
way with the abuser, like getting to know the child yourself. Whoa, that's just get to
Right,
know the
and
child yourself, who they are, right?
who they
Yeah,
are, giving them that safe space to say all the things, knowing, and I think this is so important, knowing I will not tell their parents, right? Because that it takes a lot longer. I would say that's something too is if you're a therapist or even as a parent, it takes longer for me to develop trust with kids who have had been around or experienced coercive control themselves. Because who am I? I'm some lady, and their parents are bringing them here, and they have this belief that I will just tattle on them, and
parents
really
tattle
showing
on each
them.
other, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, particularly abusers, yeah.
And so showing them integrity, and in a couple of cases, probably more than a couple, a kid will come back in so pissed at me, and they're like, "Why did you tell my mom XYZ?" Or, "Why did you tell my dad XYZ and I haven't?" I'm like, "Oh gosh, what did they say?" Because I promise you, I didn't say anything. And it is usually at that point when that parent is trying to break down the relationship that I have with the child. Similar, it's like this parallel process of
Oh,
what happens to the protective parent is, "Oh, shit. Sybil is good at her stupid job. My kid really likes her. My kid trusts her. I gotta mess that up."
I gotta isolate. I have got to create a space where they don't feel safe
Yeah.
with her. Yeah.
And
Phew.
so it really is like I before I send an email to parents, like, if it's like a 4-year-old, I ask them questions. "Hey, I was thinking of telling your parents that the end of session that you feel better, your body feels better when we're playing in the sand. Can I tell your parents that?" And a 4-year-old's like, "Yeah, what sure." What you're right, they don't know. But if it's like an 8, 9, 10, or older, and I'm gonna be sending an email to their parents, I will sometimes sit down and be like, "Hey, here's the draft email that I'm sending your parents. What do you think?" And that just gives them like, "Hey, I am transparent. I am not going to lie to you like they are telling you I am.
Mm,
This is what I'm sharing. You
yeah.
can add to it or not. We can talk about what's in there." And so I think that offering that transparency to them because I'm in a place that I can do that. I wouldn't say for all protective parents to offer all transparency to them, right? Because that can bring a lot of stuff up for you, for them, for courts, things like that. But I get to share, like, "Hey, you know what? Your mom sent me an email about," and I don't always share the exact email, "XYZ," or "Your dad sent me an email about. Is that something that you want to talk about? Is it something that's important in to you?" Because a lot of times it's not. And then again, just that integrity of this is what I'm doing and you trust that this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so my kids, right after we've developed that trust, it is really hard to break it, which drives some parents completely bonkers.
Oh,
that
I'm
they can't do
sure.
that.
And I appreciate the little bit of humor or laugh there because it makes me really distressed and sad when I hear that a child who has had a relationship, an attachment to you, and that an abuser is going to come in simply just to hurt the protective parent. They're going to take away that relationship. And we do hear about this happening. And I think for our listeners to understand that absolutely this is what an abuser will do, right? Is to
Yep.
fracture that
Yep.
attachment in some way. And I love that you said it's like parallel. It's like it is. It totally is. It's like I say, like, in order for a child to become indoctrinated, they have to be isolated and intimidated. The three I's, I call it:
Yep.
isolation, intimidation, indoctrination. So isolate you from Sybil, intimidate you, make you think that she's a betrayer, that she's a liar, that she's not trustworthy. Therefore, now I can indoctrinate you that she's useless, that you don't want to go see her, that there's no reason to go to therapy's dumb. You know what I mean? I can just
Yep.
it's yeah, for lack of a better word, it's so diabolical, frankly.
Yes, it's so insidious and gross, and
Oh, it's
I'm working with
gross.
little people, like little humans, right? And so that is it is really hard, and then, of course, I'm documenting, I'm really good at documentation, my documentation is spot on, and so should I ever need it, I've got it,
Yeah.
and then in some cases, I have a good relationship with the other professionals in the case, and they actually care what I have to say. And others, they don't care a whole heck of a lot, and I'm like this annoying person as a part of the case. But when I do have access to the other like, the decision makers, these cases can go well. They really can.
Mhm.
And I don't throw people under the bus. I'm sharing my observations of the child, right?
Mhm.
And through that, then the child's voice is heard. A lot of times, and I don't do it often, but when I receive a subpoena to show up in family court as a child's therapist, if it's in my child's best interest, I will go. I'll go. There's no harm. Like, I don't, if it's going to harm my kiddo, then my attorney is on standby, ready to quash that real fast. But if I'm there, I will actually ask my kids who some of them do know all the ins and outs. If my parents are going to court, my mom wants me to move. My dad is, says my mom's spending all of his money and whatever. Like they know all the things. And so I'll say, hey, I'm going to go talk to the person that makes decisions in your case. Is there anything you want me to share? And give them that opportunity. And even if it is something that goes against what I think is actually in their best interest, because that happens, right? And if the grass seems really green on the other side, especially for my teens who it's like, "No, if I'm with this other parent, they will let me have every social media. They don't have a curfew. They will let me do all the things." Then I will that's what you would like me to share. I was like, "This is actually what I'm gonna share," and I'm honest with them about that, and I'm like, "But I am happy to share what you want and believe too, and I'm gonna share what I think." As
Mhm.
well, and I none of my kids get mad about that, even if what I think is best for them is different from what they want. But I
Right.
think it's that transparency and offering them just to have their voice heard.
Sure, and I'm guessing they know at their core that you truly care about them, and that's key, and so it's harder to be angry with someone when you think that they're trying to hurt you, but that's not your
Yeah.
intent, and they
No.
know that, so, yeah, that's beautiful, that's amazing, but it's also sounds very challenging, very challenging,
Yep,
and,
got it, like, attorney on retainer because who is threatened more than any practice I know?
right,
This practice right here. Um
absolutely, yeah,
Because even if you work with kids, you have a higher grievance risk. I wanna say I read an article fairly recently, and it was like, you're 8 times more likely to be grieved than if you work with adults, if you
wow,
work with kids. So
well
there's one reason why people don't wanna work with kids too, is it's a higher liability, and then when you have family court and child protection related things involved, it goes up even more than that. And so it's if you want to work with kids and you want to work in this, there are ways to protect yourself. And so that's what not just offering like how to work with these families, but how to protect yourself as a professional. And it is similar because it does parallel how a protective parent protects themselves too. And so all of those pieces of having community around you, having supportive people around you is really important to consult and to vent about things. And then, documentation, making sure your documentation is really good, making sure you have someone like to that community piece to consult with. People in the legal field try to gaslight me all the time. And so most of the time, I'm really steadfast in what I know about my kids, what I know about the cases. And there are times when I start questioning, so then it's like having that other person to be like, "Hey, I've got this case. What do you think? Am I a crazy person? And I don't know what I'm doing?" And
Mhm.
most of the time, I'm not a crazy person. So
Right.
it's really a similar process in that regard to protection as it is if you're a protective parent.
No, absolutely. It does sound like it. It makes me also think about all of the things that we're teaching children. You're giving these little ones agency. You're asking them how they feel about something. And that's something that's lost, of course, with that omnipresent abuser. And then this idea that these abusers do use a lure, especially when kids reach tweens and teens. They're trying to lure them in all the time. And knowing that and recognizing that and helping, I'm sure, a protective parent be able to maybe let go go of some of the rules they've
Mhm.
always thought they'd have for their children, the values. And that's part of the grieving process, isn't like all of a sudden you're parenting a different child, a
Yes.
totally different
Yes.
child, and you
You're
have
scared
to
to
be
parent them.
okay with that. Yeah.
You're
Mm,
scared to parent them any way that's not perfect, and there's no perfect parent, everyone. Like,
no.
people have this idea, I'm a child therapist, and I'm just probably the perfect parent. No, my children will tell you that I lecture them in the car just like you lecture your kids in the car, right? We are human,
Yeah,
and I think, yeah, being able to give them, and this is something that parents can do too, is discernment, right? That idea of discernment and how it and we really focus on, like, how they feel in their bodies a lot, which sometimes is hard if you don't like to be in your body either. So, from a parent's perspective, that's hard, but that's something that parents are gonna do, that's something that we do is you feel this specific way with
sure.
this friend, with this parent, with in this situation, like, you're feeling certain ways, and these other situations, you feel this different way that you don't really like, and just get right, and there's no right or wrong, it's just letting them see it.
Agreed.
That and then they get to make those choices, and I think that is, right, what protective parents get to do on a day-to-day basis is have your children feel a specific way with you,
Absolutely.
and they will feel something different with an unconditional caregiver. They won't feel
Absolutely.
the same.
Yeah, yeah, and I often say, and I know we have to finish up in a moment, but that even if you're only with your children an hour a week, I have some moms who are only seeing their children for an hour or 2 a week or an hour or 2 every other week, and it's supervised, whatever the situation is. Every single moment you have with your children is a moment that you can create that discernment.
Yeah,
And it's not about letting them get away with everything. It's not. It's really about being present and attuned to them, co-regulating and giving them those opportunities for agency and to feel that ability. Oh my gosh, I can actually be myself. Even if I'm a horrible self right now with mom or dad, I can
yep,
actually be that and be loved regardless. And that's transformational because they cannot do that in the other home.
no,
It's not possible within the other home. It's not that possible with the other homes, maybe parents, extended family. There's a whole regulation of behavior going on. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. I think we do need to talk again about that other issue too, though. But
right. Getting consent from your ex. That's
yes.
oh my gosh, that's like it's like a daily occurrence here.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I am so grateful for the work you do. I'm always like, of course, I'm constantly hearing from people, who can I send my children to, right? And it's really slim pickings out there. And this is why, again, so my story is that my adolescent was willing to go to therapy. I paid her to go. But then when
Mhm.
she was going, she had the false narrative of the abuser, and that
Yeah,
was getting validated and reinforced for her.
yeah,
And so at some point I realized this isn't useful. They're not even willing to talk to me. And when I would go in and try to explain what was really going on, the dynamic in the home as a fellow therapist and a
yeah,
mother, they thought I was cuckoo. They couldn't be this
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
And so my daughter will often say to me now things like part of the reason why she isn't as comfortable with therapy is because she said, "Mom, I was able to go in there and manipulate them all the
Oh,
time."
yes.
And how do we really, I think to your point is we need someone like you. We need like it's a network of protective parts, right? And that
Yes.
includes the protective parent and includes family and all kinds of experiences for the child to be loved unconditionally, accepted
Yeah.
unconditionally. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that have there been times that I have at first been bamboozled even knowing what I know? Yes, absolutely. And then there was one something like and I have a couple cases in my head that like I there was something I wasn't listening to myself, my internal feels. I was not listening to my intuition. And so there was, like, this something that was like, "Hey, listen to me," inside to where there was maybe one email or one statement or one in this one case, gross look at me, ugh, where I was like, "Oh, I need to sit back and actually" and right, and I saw the case, like, so differently, and it had been months. And I was like and then there's that piece of my own work of, like, tail between my legs, feel right? Feel, but then it was like, I actually then it's my job to apologize, take accountability, and do things differently. Not easy work, but I do see that as well as, and I see therapists scared. I see not just therapists scared, I see other professionals scared of a lot of these abusers as well.
Absolutely.
But just being like humble enough to know that I could still be tricked. I could still take the bait. And so it's that constant assessment. Like when I was working, and I work with adults too, I work with survivors too, but when I'm teaching, it's like you don't just assess these cases. It is constant assessment. Like we're assessing safety, we're assessing basic needs, we're assessing all these things, and you can't just like one and done assess.
So true.
And that's the same thing when you're working with kids, and it's not just assessing them, it's like assessing your stuff going on too, because you can be tricked as well.
Just like adult victims are,
Yep.
just like children
Yep.
are, just like professionals are, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do often say, and I probably need to leave on this moment, but the idea that if we really investigate the parental subsystem, and that
Yes.
means really unpacking what that relationship dynamic has been like. I think what we do oftentimes is we just assume people come into our office, we make an assessment. Oh, they seem they've got
Mhm.
problems, whatever. No, has there been one person who's had more power? Has there been inequality in the relationship? If there's been inequality in the relationship, who's been the person who's been holding most of that power?
Yes.
And
Yep.
then, yeah, so it's not hard, but I don't think all of us always take the time. And I think the good news is more people are taking the time and doing that. And
Yes.
we need a sea of allies. That's what I keep saying.
Yes.
A
Yep,
whole
that's the goal. I know
ocean.
that's my goal. I know that's your goal.
Yes.
Speak with a megaphone,
Well,
what we know.
I
So
know. Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for your work. Oh my gosh, the children who see you are so blessed. So blessed.
I appreciate that. And my goal is for there to be more of this, more of us, more people willing to take that time because it does, it takes time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks very much for being on.
Yes. Thank you for having me.